Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring cognitive restructuring,
Okay.
which is a technique from the world of CBT,
Right.
cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yes.
that can really change how you think
Yeah.
and boost your mental well-being.
Really powerful stuff.
Yeah. And we've got a mix of explanations and visuals for this deep dive.
Right.
So get ready to learn some practical skills for handling life's curveballs
Awesome.
and maybe even being a bit kinder to yourself in the process.
I love that.
Yeah, so
What's fascinating?
what's fascinating about cognitive restructuring is that it tackles those pesky thinking errors that can trip us up.
Thinking errors?
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Right.
I feel like I make a few of those on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But before we dive into those, can we back up a bit?
Sure.
What's the basic idea behind CBT?
So CBT is based on the idea that our thoughts, feelings, and actions are all interconnected.
Okay.
If we can shift those negative or unhelpful thoughts, it can have a ripple effect.
Leading to positive changes in how we feel and what we do.
So it's not just about slapping on a happy face
No,
and, thinking positive thoughts.
not at all.
Eh.
It's about thinking more accurately and realistically.
Okay.
William James, the famous philosopher and psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
he had a great quote about this. He said, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another."
Wow.
That's pretty empowering when you think about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
But how do we actually choose different thoughts?
Right.
Our thoughts can feel so automatic sometimes,
You do.
almost like they have a mind of their own.
It's true. That's where cognitive restructuring comes in.
Okay.
It gives you a set of tools to identify those automatic negative thoughts and challenge them.
Okay.
One of the most powerful tools is something called a thought record.
A thought record.
Yes.
Is that like a diary for your thoughts?
It's similar to a journal, but with a more structured approach. With a thought record, you write down your thoughts, feelings, and the situations that triggered them.
Okay.
This helps you see patterns and gives you a place to start challenging those negative thoughts.
Challenging our thoughts. Do we just tell ourselves to stop thinking negatively?
It's a little more involved than that.
Okay.
It's like playing detective with your own mind.
Okay.
You question the validity of your thoughts. Look for evidence to support or refute them, and try to see things from different perspectives.
No, instead of just pushing away those negative thoughts, we're actually investigating them.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And remember, this takes time and effort. It's not a quick fix.
Okay.
But with practice, you can actually change those ingrained thought patterns.
So tell me more about those thinking errors
Okay?
we were talking about.
Yeah.
What are some examples people might recognize in their own lives?
One common error is all or nothing thinking,
Okay.
seeing things in extremes. For example, if I don't ace this presentation, I'm a complete failure.
Ouch.
There's no middle ground.
I've definitely been there. That kind of thinking can be so harsh.
It is, and it's often not even accurate.
Right.
Another one is overgeneralization,
Okay.
where you take one isolated event and make a sweeping judgment about yourself or the world.
So like, I spilled coffee on myself this morning, so today's going to be a complete disaster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or I messed up that one presentation, so I'm obviously terrible at public speaking.
Right.
It's important to remember that one event doesn't define you or predict the future.
That's a good reminder. Are there other types of thinking errors we should be aware of?
Catastrophizing is a big one.
Okay.
That's when you always imagine the worst case scenario.
I'm a pro at catastrophizing.
Right.
My brain goes straight to, that weird noise in my car means the engine is about to explode.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
It's about learning to recognize that our thoughts aren't always a reliable reflection of reality.
Okay.
Another common distortion is personalization,
Okay.
where you assume everything is about you even when it's not.
Like, everyone's quiet at dinner. They must be mad at me.
Exactly. It's about learning to separate your own insecurities from the situation.
So recognizing these thinking errors,
Yes.
these cognitive distortions,
Mhm.
is the first step to breaking free from them.
Exactly. It's about becoming aware of those automatic negative thoughts that pop up
Okay.
and realizing that they might not be telling the whole story.
And that's where those thought records come in.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thought records give you a structured way to break down those automatic negative thoughts and examine them with a more objective lens. It's like having a toolkit for your mind.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through how to use a thought record?
Of course. The first step is to identify the automatic negative thought.
Okay.
What's that knee-jerk reaction in your mind?
Okay.
Write it down as specifically as possible.
So if I'm feeling anxious about a presentation, I might write down, I'm going to mess this up and everyone will think I'm incompetent.
Perfect.
Okay.
Then you analyze that thought for cognitive distortions. Which thinking error is at play here? Is it all or nothing thinking? Catastrophizing? Personalization?
So we're putting on our detective hats?
Exactly. Looking for clues?
Once you've identified the distortion, you can start challenging the thought's validity.
Okay.
What's the evidence for and against this thought? Is it really true that everyone will think you're incompetent?
Right.
Or is that an overgeneralization?
So this is where we get to argue with our own thoughts.
Exactly.
Present our case and show why they might not be as accurate as they seem.
It's like being a lawyer for your own well-being.
Yes.
And the final step is to develop a more balanced and realistic thought.
Okay.
How else can you view the situation? What's a more helpful and accurate interpretation?
So instead of thinking, I'm going to mess this up, I might say, I've prepared well, and I'm capable of doing a good job. Even if it's not perfect, it's an opportunity to learn and grow.
Exactly. And the more you use thought records,
Okay.
the more natural this process will become.
You'll start to catch those negative thoughts earlier and be able to reframe them before they spiral out of control.
This is all making so much sense.
Good.
But what if our negative thoughts feel really sticky and persistent?
Right.
How do we reframe them in a way that actually feels believable?
That's where evidence-based reframing comes in.
Okay.
We're not talking about just chanting positive affirmations.
Yeah.
It's about using logic and facts
Okay.
to create a more realistic and balanced perspective.
So it's like backing up our new, more positive thoughts with actual evidence.
Precisely. The first step is to gather evidence for and against your negative belief. Is it truly accurate? Or are you letting emotions or past experiences cloud your judgment?
It's like we're fact-checking our own thoughts.
Exactly. And then you identify this specific cognitive distortion at play.
Right.
Are you catastrophizing? Overgeneralizing?
Yeah.
Once you've named the distortion, it loses some of its power.
It's like we're taking away its disguise.
Right. And the final step is to develop a more realistic thought based on the evidence you've gathered. It's not about denying your feelings. It's about creating a more balanced and accurate view of the situation.
This feels so empowering.
It is.
It's like we're taking back control of our thoughts instead of letting them control us.
Exactly.
Okay.
And with practice, this new way of thinking can become more and more automatic.
This is all starting to click for me. But what about those moments when our minds are racing
Yes.
and we can't even get to the point of using a thought record?
Right.
What can we do in those moments to find some calm?
That's where mindfulness comes in.
Okay.
It's a powerful tool for creating some space between you and your thoughts, allowing you to observe them without getting swept away.
I've heard a lot about mindfulness, but I'm not sure I fully understand it.
Sure.
Can you explain how it works in this context?
Mindfulness is about paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Okay.
It's about noticing your thoughts and feelings as they arise, but not getting caught up in them.
Okay.
Imagine watching clouds drift by in the sky.
Okay.
You observe them, but you don't try to control them or judge them.
Right.
It's same with your thoughts.
So instead of being in the middle of the storm of our thoughts, we're observing them from a distance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And conscious breathing is a simple but powerful technique
Okay.
for cultivating mindfulness. By focusing on your breath, you anchor yourself to the present moment
Right.
and create a sense of calm and clarity.
So mindfulness helps us create that mental space we need
Exactly.
to then apply the cognitive restructuring techniques.
Exactly. It's all about creating a foundation of awareness and non-judgment,
Right.
which makes it easier to challenge those negative thoughts
Yeah.
and reframe them in a more balanced way.
This is all starting to make so much sense. But what about those moments where we're hit with strong emotions that feel totally out of control?
Right.
Can cognitive restructuring help with that too?
Absolutely. Understanding and managing our emotional triggers is a crucial aspect of this work.
What exactly are emotional triggers? And how do they relate to our thoughts?
Emotional triggers are basically anything that evokes a strong emotional response in us.
Okay.
They can be internal, like certain thoughts or memories, or external, like certain people, places, or situations.
Right.
And these triggers are often linked to past experiences or deeply held beliefs.
So something happens and we have a big emotional reaction that might feel out of proportion to the situation.
Exactly. And often those reactions are fueled by the automatic negative thoughts we've been discussing.
So if we can learn to recognize our triggers and the thoughts they provoke,
Yes.
we can start to manage our emotional responses more effectively.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about developing a sense of awareness and creating a pause between the trigger and your reaction.
So we have a chance to choose a different path
Exactly.
instead of just reacting on autopilot.
It's about empowering yourself to respond in a way that aligns with your values and goals.
This is all incredibly helpful, but I think it would be great to have some real-life examples of how people can apply cognitive restructuring in their everyday lives.
Sure.
What are some common scenarios
Yeah.
where these techniques can make a real difference?
Let's start with work stress, something I think we can all relate to.
Right.
Imagine you're feeling overwhelmed by a looming project,
Okay.
and that familiar thought pops into your head. I'll never finish this. It's too much.
Oh, I've definitely been there.
Right.
That feeling of panic and dread can be paralyzing.
But instead of letting that thought spiral, you can use cognitive restructuring to reframe it.
Okay.
First, break down the project into smaller, more manageable tasks.
So instead of seeing this giant mountain of work,
Right.
we're creating a step-by-step path to the top.
Exactly. And then recall past successes.
Okay.
Remind yourself of times you've successfully tackled similar challenges.
So we're gathering evidence to challenge that negative thought.
Yes.
Wait a minute, I've done this before, I can do it again.
Right. You're building a case for your own competence.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
What about social anxiety? How can cognitive restructuring help people navigate those tricky social situations?
Social anxiety is another area where these techniques can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Let's say you're dreading a party
Okay.
because that thought pops up. Everyone will judge me. I'm going to make a fool of myself.
The classic social anxiety spiral.
Right. But instead of letting that thought take over,
Yeah.
you can use cognitive restructuring to challenge it.
Okay.
First, consider the evidence. Is there any actual proof that everyone will judge you?
Probably not. More likely everyone else is too busy worrying about themselves to even notice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And try to shift your focus to the positive possibilities.
Okay.
What if you meet someone interesting? What if you have a great conversation?
Yeah.
What if you simply enjoy the experience?
So instead of fixating on the potential negative outcomes,
Right.
we're opening ourselves up to the good things that could happen.
Exactly. It's about challenging those assumptions that are holding you back from fully engaging in life.
I love how practical and applicable these techniques are.
Yeah.
It's like we're giving our listeners a toolkit for navigating life's challenges
Yes.
with more confidence and resilience.
That's the goal. And remember, it's not about becoming some sort of positive thinking guru.
Right.
It's about developing a more balanced and realistic perspective.
Yeah.
So you can approach life's challenges with more clarity and confidence.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I've already learned so much.
Oh, good.
But before we wrap up part one, I'm curious, are there any digital tools out there
Yeah.
that can make this process easier?
You're in luck.
Okay.
There are some fantastic CBT apps and online resources
Okay.
that can support your cognitive restructuring journey.
This is right up my alley.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, some apps like MoodFit and ICBT
Okay.
offer structured programs and exercises to help you identify and challenge negative thoughts, track your mood, and even connect with therapists online.
So it's like having a virtual therapist in your pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are apps like Calm that focus on mindfulness techniques like guided meditations and breathing exercises,
Yeah.
which can be incredibly helpful for creating that mental space we talked about earlier.
Those sound like great resources.
They are.
And I imagine online communities and forums can also be helpful for connecting with others and sharing experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's amazing how technology can make these tools and resources more accessible than ever before.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive into the world of cognitive restructuring.
Yeah.
Before we move on to part two,
Okay.
what's one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember from today's conversation?
The most important thing is to remember that you are not your thoughts.
Okay.
Your thoughts are just mental events. They're not facts.
Right.
And you have the power to choose which thoughts you want to believe and which thoughts you want to let go of.
That's such an empowering message. I think we've covered so much ground today, but I know we've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating topic. We'll be back in part two to dive even deeper into the world of cognitive restructuring, exploring more techniques and strategies for mastering this powerful skill. See you soon.
Sounds great.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're continuing our exploration of cognitive restructuring, and I'm really excited to see how these techniques
Me too.
can be applied in different areas of life.
It's fascinating how cognitive restructuring can be used to navigate a wide range of challenges.
Right.
Last time we touched on work stress and social anxiety. Now let's delve into another common area where negative thoughts can run rampant.
Okay.
Relationship conflicts.
Relationship conflicts. Ooh, yes, those can be tough.
They can.
Whether it's with a partner, a family member, a friend, or even a colleague, I think everyone has experienced those moments when communication breaks down.
For sure.
And emotions run high.
Absolutely. Conflict is a natural part of human interaction.
Right.
But how we respond to conflict often determines whether it strengthens or weakens the relationship.
That's true.
And that's where cognitive restructuring can be incredibly helpful.
So instead of reacting impulsively or letting our emotions take over, we can use these techniques to create a pause and respond in a more thoughtful and constructive way.
Precisely. Let's imagine a common scenario.
Okay.
You and your partner are disagreeing about something.
Okay.
You're feeling hurt, misunderstood, maybe even a bit angry, and that automatic negative thought pops into your head. They don't care about my feelings. They're always so selfish.
Oof. Yeah, that's a thought that can really sting.
It does.
And fuel those negative emotions.
It does. But before you react based on that thought, cognitive restructuring encourages you to take a step back and examine it.
Right.
First, recognize it as an automatic negative thought. Don't judge it, just observe it.
So we're acknowledging those thoughts and feelings without letting them take over.
Exactly. Then you can start challenging the thought.
Okay.
Is it really true that your partner never cares about your feelings?
Okay.
Are they always selfish?
Right.
Or are there times when they do show care and consideration?
That's a great point. It's easy to fall into those black and white thinking craps when we're upset.
It is.
But it's rarely the whole picture.
Exactly. And then consider alternative explanations for their behavior.
Okay.
Maybe they're stressed about something else.
Right.
Or they're communicating in a way that's unintentional. But hurtful to you.
So we're trying to step into their shoes and see things from their perspective.
Right. It's not about excusing their behavior.
Right.
It's about cultivating empathy and understanding.
Okay.
And once you've challenged that initial negative thought, you can start to reframe it.
Okay.
Instead of, they don't care about my feelings.
Right.
You might think, I'm feeling hurt right now, and I need to communicate that to them in a way that's clear and respectful.
That's a huge shift.
It is.
It takes the blame and accusation out of the equation and focuses on finding a solution.
Exactly. And remember, communication is key in any relationship.
Yes.
Cognitive restructuring can help you communicate your needs and feelings in a way that's assertive, but not aggressive.
So it's not just about changing our thoughts. It's about changing our behavior, too.
Precisely. And that change of behavior can have a ripple effect, leading to more positive interactions and a stronger, healthier relationship.
I love how practical and empowering this all is. It's like we're giving our listeners a toolkit for navigating those inevitable relationship bumps in a more skillful way.
Exactly. And remember, this takes practice. No one becomes a master communicator overnight.
Of course not.
But the more you use these techniques, the more natural they will become.
That's encouraging. I think it's also important to acknowledge that cognitive restructuring isn't a magic bullet.
Right.
It doesn't mean we'll never experience negative thoughts. Or difficult emotions again.
Of course not. You're absolutely right. It's not about becoming some kind of emotionless robot. It's about developing a more mindful and compassionate relationship with your thoughts and feelings.
So instead of getting swept away by those negative thought patterns, we're learning to observe them, challenge them, and choose a different path.
Exactly. And there will be times when those negative thoughts feel really sticky and persistent. And that's okay. It's all part of the process. The key is to be patient with yourself and keep practicing.
That message of self-compassion is so important.
It is.
It's easy to get discouraged when we're trying to change our thinking patterns.
Absolutely. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are so many resources available. From therapists and support groups to online communities and apps. Reach out and connect with others who are on this journey.
That's a great reminder. We're all in this together.
We are.
Speaking of support. What's your take on seeking professional help? When it comes to cognitive restructuring? When is it a good idea to reach out to a therapist?
That's a great question. While these techniques can be incredibly helpful for many people, there are times when working with a trained therapist can be invaluable.
So it's not an either situation.
Right.
It can be really beneficial to have the guidance and support of a professional.
Exactly. A therapist can provide personalized guidance,
Okay.
help you tailor the techniques to your specific needs and challenges, and offer support and accountability along the way.
That makes a lot of sense. What are some signs that someone might benefit from working with a therapist?
If you're finding that your negative thoughts are persistent and overwhelming,
Okay.
or if you're struggling to manage your emotions, or if you're just feeling stuck and unable to make progress on your own,
Right.
reaching out for professional support can make a world of difference.
Yeah. So it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help.
It's not.
It's actually a sign of strength and self-awareness.
Absolutely. And a therapist can also help you address
Okay.
any underlying mental health conditions
Right.
that might be contributing to your negative thought patterns, such as anxiety or depression.
That's so important. It's about taking a holistic approach to our mental well-being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, therapy is a journey, not a destination. It's about learning new skills,
Okay.
developing healthier coping mechanisms,
Right.
and ultimately creating a more fulfilling and joyful life.
This has been such a rich and insightful conversation.
It has.
I feel like I've gained so much valuable knowledge about cognitive restructuring
Oh, good.
and how to apply it in my own life.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up part 2, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes. I'd just like to emphasize that cognitive restructuring is an ongoing process.
Okay.
It's not something you do once,
Right.
and then you're cured. It's about cultivating a new way of thinking, a new way of relating to your thoughts and emotions. And like any skill, it takes practice and patience.
That's such an important reminder. It's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Exactly. And remember, you are capable of change.
Yeah.
You have the power within you to challenge those negative thought patterns and create a more positive and empowering reality for yourself.
That's so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
You're welcome.
I know our listeners are going to benefit tremendously from these insights.
I hope so.
It's been a pleasure exploring these techniques with you.
Likewise.
I know our listeners are going to walk away with so much valuable knowledge and inspiration.
I hope so. I'm excited to continue this conversation part 3,
Okay.
where we'll be exploring some more advanced techniques and strategies for mastering cognitive restructuring.
Sounds fascinating. I can't wait. See you soon.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're wrapping up our exploration of cognitive restructuring and,
I'm curious about what happens after you've mastered the basics.
Okay.
What's next on this journey of transforming our thoughts?
It's like leveling up in a video game.
Yeah.
Once you've got those foundational skills down,
Right.
you can unlock some really powerful advanced techniques that take cognitive restructuring to a whole new level.
Okay. I'm ready to unlock those advanced levels.
Right.
What's one technique that can help us go deeper with cognitive restructuring?
One technique that I find particularly effective is called Socratic questioning.
Socratic questioning.
Yes.
Okay.
It's named after the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates,
Right.
who was famous for using questions to challenge assumptions and uncover deeper truths.
So we're channeling our inner philosophers.
Exactly.
I like it. How does this work in practice?
Instead of simply countering a negative thought with a positive affirmation,
Okay.
you ask yourself a series of probing questions that help you examine the thought from different angles.
I'm intrigued. Can you give us an example?
Let's say you're struggling with the thought, I'm not good enough to apply for that job.
Okay, a classic.
Instead of just trying to convince yourself that you are good enough,
Right.
you could ask yourself,
Okay.
what evidence do I have to support this thought? What evidence contradicts it? What are the potential consequences of believing this thought? What are the potential consequences of not believing it? If a friend shared this thought with me, what would I say to them?
Wow. Those questions really make you think.
They do.
It's like you're holding your thought up to a mirror and examining it from all sides.
Exactly. It helps you identify the underlying beliefs and assumptions
Right.
that are driving those negative thoughts and allows you to create a more nuanced and balanced perspective.
It's like we're putting our thoughts on trial,
I love that.
presenting evidence and cross-examining our own beliefs.
I love that analogy. Another powerful technique is called behavioral experiments.
Behavioral experiments.
Yes.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me
Okay.
more.
This technique is all about actively testing out your negative thoughts in real-life situations
Okay.
to see if they hold up to scrutiny.
Okay.
It's about gathering evidence to either support or refute your beliefs.
So instead of just thinking about it, we're putting our thoughts to the test.
Exactly.
What would that look like?
Let's say you have social anxiety and you constantly think, people will judge me if I try to talk to them.
Right.
A behavioral experiment might involve striking up conversations with strangers
Okay.
in low-stakes situations, like at a coffee shop or while waiting in line.
So it's about facing those fears head on and seeing what actually happens.
Exactly.
What if the experiment confirms the fear?
Even if it confirms your fear in some cases,
Right.
it provides valuable information.
Okay.
You can then explore those specific situations that trigger your anxiety and develop coping mechanisms for those scenarios. Or you might realize that the fear isn't as all-encompassing as you thought it was.
So it's about gathering data and learning from experience.
It is.
What if it disproves the negative thought?
That's a fantastic opportunity to celebrate a win and build your confidence.
Okay.
You might realize that people are generally kinder and more open than you imagined, which can be incredibly liberating.
It's about breaking free from those limiting beliefs that are keeping us stuck in a cycle of fear and self-doubt.
Exactly. Behavioral experiments are a powerful way to challenge your assumptions and create a more evidence-based and empowering view of yourself and the world.
These advanced techniques are so fascinating, but how do we know when we're ready to move on to these more challenging strategies?
That's a great question. A good indicator is when you're feeling comfortable with the basics of cognitive restructuring.
So when we can recognize our automatic negative thoughts, challenge them with evidence, and reframe them into more balanced and realistic thoughts.
Exactly. Once those skills feel somewhat natural, you're ready to start experimenting with these more nuanced techniques.
Okay.
But even then, it can be really helpful to have the guidance of a therapist, especially if you're dealing with more complex or challenging situations.
I can see how having that professional support could make a big difference.
It can.
Especially when you're venturing into these more advanced areas.
Right.
As we wrap up our deep dive into cognitive restructuring, what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember?
I'd say the most important thing to remember is that you have the power to change your thoughts. And in doing so, you have the power to change your experience of life. Cognitive restructuring gives you the tools to challenge those negative patterns and create a more positive, empowered, and fulfilling reality.
That's such a powerful message of hope and agency.
It is.
It's been amazing exploring these techniques with you.
Likewise.
I know our listeners are going to walk away with so much valuable knowledge and inspiration.
I hope so.
And a huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this deep dive into the world of cognitive restructuring. Remember, this is a lifelong practice. Keep exploring these techniques, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep believing in your own power to create positive change.
Well said.
Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
We'll see you on the deep dive.